Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow, sponsored by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids. I'm your host, Sergeant John Perrine from Indiana State Police Public Information Office. This show is visually possible every week thanks to the fantastic work of Mr. Tom Trial. Tom works hard every week to get this put on YouTube so that you can not only hear us, but you can see us. Our guest today, a longtime friend of the state police and a multiple-time guest on the Roadshow, Captain Mike Pruitt from Wayne Township Fire Department.
Good morning,
Mike.
John.
Good morning, Mike. Now, this is the first time, I think, that Mike and I have been on this show, just the two of us, so who knows where this could go.
I know. I'm a little fearful of where it's going to go, but we'll keep it on the straight way.
If you keep your eye on social media at all, you will see that Mike and I have a pretty good, long-standing friendship, and we like to poke at each other, but we also work hard to get a lot of important messages out there. And today, we have a serious and important message, and it has to do with fatal fires. And we've, talking with Mike, we've had an increase in 2018, almost a historic year for the number of fatal fires we had in Indiana.
Yes, that's correct. 2017 compared to 2018, we had an uptick. And when we see that, we really got to push the message harder, although it's a shared responsibility from public safety all the way down to the individual homeowner to make sure that we have working smoke alarms in the home, that we have escape plans, and we practice those escape plans.
You know, it's so important to be proactive, right? We can talk about a response all we want. We can talk about fire alarms and smoke detectors and all the things that would alert you that there's a fire. But one of the keys is prevention. How do you even keep a fire and from starting? So
we know that cooking fires are typically the number one cause of home fires. And so teaching people, about letting grease get too hot or leaving food unattended because in these days it's so easy to get distracted. And then we also have the space heater issue, of which we've already had 3 space heater fires in Wayne Township alone this year. So there's a lot of things we can do prevention-wise to prevent the fire from ever starting. But it tends to lead to situations where these fires start and we have a fatal outcome because folks didn't, 1, practice good prevention, 2, didn't have a working smoke alarm, or if they did have a smoke alarm in the home, it wasn't working properly, and then they didn't have a proper escape plan, and they had not practiced that. I mean, you and I in public safety, we practice our training all the time, so in the heat of the moment, we know how to respond. And I'm not a firefighter, and fire prevention isn't always at the front of my mind when I'm doing things. But, I think it's easy to think it wouldn't happen to me. The grease fire won't happen to me, or cooking on my grill too close to the house won't happen. Nothing's going to happen because I know what I'm doing. But how quickly can these things just get out of control? And we know once a fire starts and it goes into the free burning stage, it can double in size by the minute. And so it doesn't take very long for that fire to consume your home. One of the things we see happen a lot of times is the smoldering fire, where no one knows that that fire has been smoldering for a couple hours. It's giving off those poisonous gases, and people are dying in their sleep without any early notification because they either didn't have a functioning smoke alarm or they did not have one in the home at all.
And, here's something that I kind of learned from you that I didn't really think, because I often think, how can someone be laying in bed and not feel the heat or the smoke, smell the smoke and wake up? But you told me oftentimes they're deceased before the flames get to them.
Absolutely. Those carbon monoxide levels build up, or the cyanide that we see, that the off gases from many of these burning materials, and we just never know, and we die in our sleep. So the only way to prevent that is by simply having multiple working smoke alarms in your home. And, we talk about purchasing the smoke alarms. You go to the big box store, we're kind of overwhelmed by the number of alarms that are available. You can buy combination alarms that are carbon monoxide. You can also purchase, there's this gas ones that detect gas in the home. So one of the things that you need to do is do your research, figure out what kind of money you have to spend, because you can spend anywhere from $10 to $100 on smoke alarms. But whatever the case is, buy a smoke alarm. Get it installed properly on each level of your home. I have more than 2 smoke alarms in my home, and I only have a 1-level home. So the more you put in your home, the safer you're going to be.
Now, I recently built a home and learned a lot about fire code, but I have a smoke detector in every bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
But just like other people, I'm just as guilty as this. We have a spare bedroom. It's a guest room, and the battery went dead on the smoke. It's a hardwired smoke detector, but when the battery goes dead, it beeps. I went upstairs to see what was going on, realized the battery was dead. I didn't have a battery to replace it. So what do you think that I did? I disconnected it.
Right.
And guess where it still sits today?
Yeah, you probably need to take care of that.
And that's unfortunate because you don't think about those things. And I had forgotten about that until we started having this conversation. And so I'm probably like many people out there where your smoke alarm will start beeping, you'll take that battery out with the intention of, hey, I'm going to go to the store next time I'm there and get a battery.
Right.
And it just gets put on the back burner and away it goes.
The awesome thing about smoke alarms these days that are coming out, they put the 10-year battery in the alarm. So we don't have to worry about taking a battery out. You literally can't take the battery out of these. And so after 10 years, you replace the whole smoke alarm. If you do have an older smoke alarm in your home that still has that 9-volt battery in it, we should be replacing that every 10 years. And, we should be checking our smoke alarm by just pushing that test button at least once a month. If you don't like reaching up there, grab a broomstick or something, push on that button, and check those smoke alarms.
Now, I know at my house I failed the first inspection because my alarms weren't communicating, but they're hardwired, so that was an easy fix. Do they make wireless, not hardwired smoke alarms that'll communicate with each other to set them all off?
They do. As long as your wireless system is working in the home, they can communicate. And also go as far as to notify you by phone when your smoke alarms go off in your home. So technology has really become advanced when it comes to smoke alarm, but you don't need that necessarily. You just need a simple smoke alarm. Go out and spend $15 on one and put those in the home, and you're going to be able to go to bed at night knowing that your family is safe.
And that's the key is we all want to protect our families, and we think of so many things. We lock our doors to keep people from coming in, and we lock the windows, and you want everything to be safe. And sometimes one of the last things we think about is fire, but it has a major effect. I mean, if your house catches on fire, you've got to have a plan, and you've got to have that plan practiced. I know you mentioned that earlier, but what if the only option is for your child to get out on the roof on the second story? Does your child know, A, that's an option, and B, can you get them down? Can they jump and you catch them? You've got to plan for these things ahead of time.
There's only one way to know that, and that's practicing. If you practice it over and over and over with your family, then you're going to have a successful outcome in the event of a fire in your home. I mean, we spend a lot of time teaching our children in the schools about what to do in case of a fire or fire prevention. And I know that these kids go home and tell their parents about what they learned at school. It's the responsibility of the parents now to take that to the next level to practice what their children have learned.
Yeah, and that's great. And I think you preach smoke alarms like I preach seatbelts. I mean, it's just one of those things that there's a reason we do that. It's not because it's a message that somebody told us to portray. It's because we've experienced real-time tragedy because of these. And people often think that we're immune to or we're desensitized to this, and we're not. We never forget those deaths that we experienced by responding, and specifically the ones that we know could have been saved with the right equipment, a seatbelt or a smoke alarm. So it's something we carry with us, and that's why it's so important when we say these messages. It's from the heart. It's not just to ramble these.
Oh, it is. And, one thing that we experienced in 2018 was increased number of child deaths due to fire in the home. And I know it's rattled everyone from Chief Greason at the fire marshal's office all the way down to the local fire departments that this has happened, and because of all the effort that we do put into educating the public. And so we see what can happen. And if you've ever talked to someone who's been through a fire and asked them, was it what you thought it was going to be before you had the fire, when you really didn't think you were going to ever have to go through this? And they'll respond to you. They absolutely had no idea that it would end up the damage, the loss, the emotional toll that it takes on the family. No one understands that better than someone who's either responded to a fire or who has had a fire in their home.
And I can't describe on the radio or on TV, the intensity of a house fire. I've been on the scene of a house fire before the fire department. Fortunately, nobody was inside on the couple that I've been to. But you get close enough, and you often think, you'd want to be the hero. I run in and I'll save everybody. But law enforcement officers, and I know probably fighters across the state and country experience this all the time, where you just can't. I mean, there's just nothing you can do to get inside that house or that building because of the intensity and how quickly it intensifies.
There's a reason we wear all the gear and the breathing protection we wear. That's how intense these fires can be in the inside of a home. So it's a challenge for us. It would be a challenge for anybody just off of the street. And we know that people, they come across a fire. Maybe the fire department's not there yet, and they're going to try to help go inside the home. But I would caution people on doing that unless you really know for a fact that you can make a difference, because these fires can get out of control really quick. And when you have more than just the person who was living in the home become a victim.
Yeah, and oftentimes you think, okay, I can get in, but you got to make sure you can get back out.
Absolutely.
And that's the key. These things spread so fast. A few years ago, we had a large structure fire in my hometown, and 2 officers went in not knowing if anybody was in. Nobody was in there, but they got up 2 or 3 floors and couldn't get back down. And fortunately, they found a window, and the fire department happened to be pulling up with a ladder because they couldn't get back out. They got in fine, but it was so fast they couldn't get out.
Yeah, and we see this happen with people who escape the home, but then feel like they need to go back into the home to rescue a pet or get valuables, and they don't make it out the second time. So once you evacuate the home, stay out of the home. Don't go back in.
Yeah. And, I've seen the rescues that you post of pets, and oftentimes fire department can get those pets for you and revive them even. Again, we all are connected to our pets, and I can't imagine the tragedy, that feeling of that loss. But it's not worth the loss of a human life.
Absolutely
to go
not.
in.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So, Mike, we're coming into the winter here, or we're halfway through the winter. Space heaters seem to be a problem, and it doesn't seem like, with technology, they're supposed to shut off if they tip over and all these things. But you said just in Wayne Township, you've had 3 so far this year.
And yes, in all 3 cases, it's been where they had left the space heater on after hours. It was placed too close to something combustible. So we should always keep these space heaters 3 foot away from anything combustible. Curtains, bed linen, furniture, just keep it away. And another thing is don't use extension cords with these space heaters, because it overpowers the cord that it's plugged into. And I know people like to extend that across the room somewhere, but that's not what those are designed for. And you can overheat that cord and also start a fire. So you have to be very careful. Shut them off when you go to bed at night. Buy a few more blankets. Snuggle up. Or when you leave the home at any point, shut the space heaters off.
What kind of heating source do you recommend for somebody that loses power for an extended amount of time? Is kerosene heater still somewhat safe?
Kerosene heaters, the problem with kerosene heaters inside of a home is if they aren't taken care of, they may not burn clean, and they can give off carbon monoxide. And that's that poisonous gas that we can't taste it, we can't smell it, and it overcomes us without us even noticing it. So we don't recommend any type of kerosene space heater in the home. Really, it's about just buying extra blankets, staying warm until your heat gets turned back on, and try not to use alternative heating sources, even ovens. We see people with gas ovens that when they lose power, they maybe open that oven up. That's still not a good choice to heat your home.
Yeah, and the key to prevention is planning. Let's say somebody does choose to use a kerosene heater. Don't leave that kerosene heater in your barn for 2 or 3 years and then drag it out, put it in the living room and light it up, because there's going to be mice nests, cobwebs, things like that. Make sure that you're maintaining these things.
Yeah, you got to make sure they're clean and make sure you're putting the right fuel in them. We've had a couple cases that I know of over the years where people put gasoline in a kerosene heater, and that is not what you put in a kerosene heaters, and it led to serious fires and serious injury in one case.
Yeah, so we've been sitting here talking everything fire prevention, fire response, having a plan, but it all comes down to common sense, right? It doesn't matter what the fire department's telling you. If you don't do things the right way, you're going to become a victim faster than you would think. Mike, thanks very much for your knowledge and for being a guest again on our show. We always appreciate it. You've been tuned in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance. and in the Cops for Kids Roadshow out.